Good morning and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning. My name is Tom Connors. With me today is a very special guest, Mr. Andrew Hawkins of the In Search of Documentaries. Hello and good morning.
What is up, Tom? Thank you for having me on. This is great.
It's about time. It's been way overdue for us to have a conversation with you on here, and hopefully we'll have many more in the future, but let's have our first.
I'm all for it.
Totally. Let's introduce you to the audience. If they may not know you, you've worked on, as I said, the In Search of yesterday and In Search of Darkness, which cover 80s sci-fi and horror films. And you also worked on the documentary You're So Cool, Brewster, which is the making of Fright Night, correct?
Yeah,
that was a great documentary.
Thank you. Yeah, love Fright Night.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what got you into this stuff.
Yeah, well, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I've been all over. I have been a writer for entertainment journalism for over a decade. And from there, I just kind of started getting involved in producing films. I have a couple that haven't been unveiled yet that are on the way, but that just kind of really came from wanting to get involved and be able to support creators and movie projects that I believed in and I loved. And, some of it started off with Kickstarter and crowdfunding and Indiegogo, and then it went from there into actually working as a line producer to be able to make these documentaries happen. And right now we've got In Search of Darkness Part 2, which is on sale now through October 31st. And we're also, like you said, working on In Search of Tomorrow, which is our big retrospective, epic, almost encyclopedic marathon-length documentary all about 80s sci-fi. But right now, it's October season. We're all about 80s horror. So that's the whole huge focus that we're doing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's take a few minutes and let's show the folks the trailer for In Search of Darkness 2. Why not? Let's do that.
They're back! In Search of Darkness Part 2. I'm in this one. The 80s was the splatter decade. That was my decade.
There was something really dark and sexy and strange.
Crazy stuff.
It's like a roller coaster ride.
People love this stuff.
There really was a shift of a whole new generation of monster makers.
That was so clever and creative.
We were rock stars in the 80s.
Tom Savini came to us and said, I want to cut somebody's head off.
I was called the Sultan of Splatter, the Wizard of Gore.
I think it's one of the finest ways of murdering someone.
How could you let me watch that?
It was something that your parents hated.
That was one of the attractions of it.
It is just a shredder.
The essence of sex and violence.
It never ceases to amaze me.
I just couldn't get enough.
I remember having to stop it because it was getting so raveled. That's an image that I'll never forget.
Gives me chills thinking about it.
I love those Italian movies. They're just crazy.
The Italians just went there immediately. Just went boom.
Video nasties were a good thing for me.
A fake snuff film phase.
Really?
Not very PC, is it?
Liquidate the Nazarene.
And I just remember thinking,
Hello.
This is fucking weird.
It was all about trying to understand the world around us, and the world around us was extremely hostile.
It's full of things that want to bite you and kill you and eat you. And that's just the humans. Revenge of the Nerds on steroids. You control a murderer.
It's more fun to be the bad guy.
Freddy bored into his subconscious and was maybe opening the closet door.
and when people go, hey, what's it like to be in the gayest horror movie ever made? I go, it was fucking awesome.
I'd been bullied. I'd been an outcast.
I think that's really one of the first times that you saw what goth was all about.
All right, talking turkey.
It's not just a one-note genre.
It's funny as hell.
I started growing hair.
It just all meshes together so perfectly. Like horror of the absurd.
That's a funny moment, but it's scary as hell.
That is kind of what resonates with fans.
Hey, kids! Welcome to prime time.
Making the film was so interesting technically.
When he started to turn into a zombie, he had me on the floor.
Just remember, I gave him life.
You are all my children now.
Halloween, silver shamrock.
So much awesomeness in 4 minutes.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that's exactly what we've done. We packed it in for this one. It's, an extension of part 1, and we went big. We went really big for this.
Yeah, part 1 is just, wow. I mean, I'm a huge fan of like DVD extras, Blu-ray extras, whatever you want to call them now, where you get a lot of great
and all that stuff.
supplements. Yeah, and so like this is like the ultimate one you could ever get, because you get all these great interviews with just about anybody you could think of, and this time around looks like you got even more great interviews. I mean, Robert Englund is one of the names that sticks out to me. You got Kane Hodder, you got Sean S. Cunningham. I mean,
Tom Savini, Nancy Allen, Linnea Quigley, Bill Moseley. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah, big time.
This is crazy. And then the benefits I saw with some of the things, because now we've taken part in some of your watch parties. Did you want to talk about some of the things that that are involved with if you do jump on board and help with the project?
Yeah, well, that's part of what the whole thing is we're delivering a documentary. And again, this is all about a retrospective. I see that James Hancock's joining in, asking if it's true. My name is Hawk the Slayer. That's absolutely right. So
thank you so much for that, James.
everyone knows that's too awesome. But yeah, we are really diving deep into films that we wanted to cover the second time around. The first time we did a lot of the mainstream, a lot of the big franchises, a lot of the favorites. But this time we kind of wanted to go further down the aisles in the video store and get some of the more obscure titles, start making it a little bit more international, bring in some Euro horror, bring in some Japanese horror. But talking about the community, talking about these watch parties, that is a huge element of this, because every other week we are doing an event where we're bringing in a celebrity from one of these films, and we're doing the Q&A for a half an hour and giving everyone the opportunity to ask their questions that they may not ever been able to ask someone like Jeffrey Combs or Kelly Maroney talking about Night of the Comet, or Laurie Cardell talking about Day of the Dead. So it's getting together, it's being part of the community, it's actually enjoying these films together, chatting about them, going through the trivia, telling stories, and just enjoying it and having a good time. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and some of the magic is getting some of the stories that we've never heard before. And I'm sure a lot of times it's a lot easier, considering they're not like, worried about what the studio is going to say if I say this or say that. Because, I mean, that's the best part, is it's an independent documentary, so you're able to get them to loosen up and open up a little bit more, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to preface any watch party or any Q&A with so-and-so studio does not agree with the comments made by this certain celebrity or talent. We're able to actually debunk some of the rumors that you might see on like the IMDb trivia page. We had an amazing watch party for Maniac Cop, with Bill Lustig, where he was telling us like all the true stories about what went down filming that in the early 80s in New York. And he was saying, oh yeah, all the rumors about us getting arrested while we were shooting the St. Patty's Day parade are completely false. All the cops were getting drunk and we were just there and we were having a party and they said, all right, go for it. Have fun. Even though you don't have permits, enjoy yourself. And that's the kind of stuff that we love being able to bring to the audience and the community. That kind of real truth from the celebrity, from the talent, from the director, the star, whoever, to, you know, actually set everybody straight and say, hey, this is what really happened when we were making this movie.
Yeah, it's so much. It's God. I mean, I've met some, you know, celebrities, but I can't imagine some of the names that you've worked with in this documentary. Out of all of them, who's been the most fun so far?
Oh man. See, the thing is, that's really tough for me because a lot of these people that come in for the interviews and are now part of the In Search of Darkness family are like my heroes growing up. Like, these are people that I idolized. These are people that I loved watching as a kid when I grew up with movies. And like, there's no way to choose between like Doug Bradley, Kane Hodder, again, Nancy Allen, Linnea Quigley, Caroline Williams, Barbara Crampton, Jeffrey Combs, Robert Englund. I mean, the list is just like all of my favorite people that I've been a fan of since being into horror. So I'll say one of my favorite, like hands down, new interviews that we were able to do for In Search of Darkness Part 2 was 100% Jaretta from Demons. She is amazing to talk to, and I can't wait for everyone to get to see her interview, because her discussing Dario Argento, Lamberto Bava, Michele Soavi, the entire like Italian 80s horror family that were making their films while we were doing our thing over here in the States. It's just full of these incredible, like, just talks about, you know, what was going on in the movie theater when they were making the film Demons, what was happening when she was working with Bruno Mattei, what was going on with the makeup effects that they were doing while Tom Savini and everyone else was doing their thing over here. So Jaretta's amazing. Shinya Tsukamoto was an incredible person to chat with about Tetsuo the Iron Man. Again, I got to say, Robert Russler and Freddy Revenge, like the discussion about that film and what Robert Englund was going on, just delivering that performance. There's so much. I can't give away everything, but I'll say, you know, I've got a million favorites in this list of like everything that we're bringing with Part 2.
Right. Like, that's the thing.
Hard question, but a great one.
Well, no, I know, like, you don't want to give too much away, like you said. Now the first film was like I said, immense. Is that one going to become available again along with the second one here? Because I know that's a little harder to come by right now.
Yeah. So ordering the second part, you have the ability to do the add-on for the first part. So the easiest way to do that is you're getting this directly from us. That's what we wanted to do with this release. There's no Kickstarter. There's no Indiegogo. This is a straight up sales. So you're buying the documentary and you're buying the bundle. And if you want to get part 1 with that, when you're in the checkout, you just click on the tab, do the add-on. And if you're ordering the Blu-ray, you get the Blu-ray of part 1. If you're ordering the DVD, you get the DVD of part 1. So we've got that hooked up for you.
Yeah, because I missed out the first time around, but I got lucky to see it, of course, through Andre. But I'm so glad I'm going to get a second chance at it, because it was a great documentary. And if you guys haven't got a chance to check it out yet, this is going to be your chance to see it. Now, In Search of Tomorrow is another one that you're working on right now. Is that still available, or is that one done and over with now?
Yeah, that one's available.
It is. Okay.
You can go on to our In Search of Tomorrow social medias, and you can follow the links in our bios, and you can jump in on that one. And that one is scheduled for a later 2021 release.
I'm going to say, I think I might even still have our link here somewhere too, as far as that goes. I'll try and find that real quick. So what made you really, I mean, you kind of got started in the beginning when you talked a little bit about your start and everything, but what really made you like, what was the first idea that came to you? I'm assuming, the first one was You're So Cool, Brewster. What was the impetus for that, or what was the inspiration behind going, you know what, I'm going to spend X amount of years trying to make this documentary? Because I know it's not like a normal movie, and for those out there listening who may not know, like, these things take years to put together, right?
Yeah. The development cycle for like In Search of Darkness and In Search of Darkness Part 2, I mean, this was all started with Creator VC and our executive Robin Block and our director David Weiner and the whole team years ago. And it's been the process of being able to put everything together and release it. And yeah, a year ago, we were able to get In Search of Darkness Part 1 out. And now In Search of Darkness Part 2 is available, and we're just going to keep going. So, no matter how long it takes, that's the whole thing, is we're just going to keep making these awesome documentaries and keep celebrating the movies that we love. Yeah. But for me, my whole impetus to get into it, essentially, was just a love for film. Like I said, I'd been writing for over a decade. I'd been doing reviews, editorials, interviews, and the next step just was gradually, okay, I want to do like the Argento thing. I want to follow in the footsteps of some of the people that I look up to and idolize and, think are really great creators, and go and take that next step forward. So that was just what it was. It was like, all right, it's time to actually start really getting involved instead of, just being ready for it. But again, it comes from just being a fan. I grew up loving genre movies. I grew up with a family that, showed me a ton of awesome films as a kid. And I carried that with me in my formative years and just kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper into really, what horror was all about through these decades, and sci-fi too. And, cult classics and stuff like that. I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm just a film fan.
Right. So like, I guess kind of take us to that moment then, because I'm assuming the In Search of documentaries were kind of a offshoot of You're So Cool, Brewster, right?
No, totally separate. Completely
Otherwise?
Separate teams.
Okay.
Yeah. So You're So Cool, Brewster was with the team that did that one, and then Creator VC has essentially grown out of the In Search of series. It initiated with Oliver Harper and In Search of Last Action Heroes, which is out there. But the real kickoff for that was In Search of Darkness Part 1. And for that one, I just started volunteering for it, and I started working on it, and I was able to get an associate producer credit, and I just kept going. And from there, it became work further and further into production and marketing and talent and just making it happen. So it's been, a huge labor of love. And the fact that it's now available to get, and we're able to show the trailers, and we're able to show the community videos, and we're able to, bring the final product of In Search of Darkness Part 2 to everyone, it's a huge accomplishment. Something that, I love that I've been able to do.
Now, do you have any of the watch parties planned yet, or anything like that you want to talk about that's coming up, that you can talk about at all yet as far as what's coming up?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll talk about what we've got coming up this weekend. We've got a great watch party on the way of Cellar Dweller. And we've got one of the effects creators from that film, Chet Zar, who's going to be joining us for the Q&A interview and then the discussion during the film. And that's going to be a blast because, I grew up loving Full Moon Features and Empire Pictures. John Carl Buechler was always one of my favorite guys behind the camera and then in the effects studio and creating the puppets for like Troll and Ghoulies. And being able to watch Cellar Dweller with someone who actually worked on the film, who's a friend, is just awesome. Because we're just going to talk about, the fun that happened behind the scenes and, have a few laughs while we enjoy the movie. And it's a great Jeffrey Combs film too. So, yeah.
Yeah. And if you guys got any questions for Andrew, go ahead and throw them up there. And we'll surely get to them here.
I was going to say quick shout out to Greg from Fanzine. I saw him pop in and say hi earlier.
Yeah, I've seen some familiar faces out there. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning as we're talking to Andrew here.
Definitely.
Now, as far as the whole process, kind of take us through, like, I know I kind of gave them the short version, but like an average, like from beginning to end, how does this go? Like, obviously you first go, okay, we want to make this documentary about sci-fi or horror. What's the first step, and then to the final process real quick?
Well, the first step for me is know the focus, if that makes sense. And, what we're doing with In Search of Darkness is entirely looking at the horror genre in the 80s. And that's a real foundation core of what we're doing. But it's also really looking at what the style of delivery is going to be. And like you're talking about with supplements and extras and DVD interviews and Blu-ray extras and all of that, those are always great. But a lot of the time when I watch those, I'm kind of left feeling like I wish I'd been able to get more insights from the people who were in front of the camera or who are making the film, or however you want. And it's like, okay, I want to sit down and enjoy a long documentary, just going film by film with person to person, talking about either doing it or how it impacted culture or how it impacted them. And that's the whole core, again, of In Search of Darkness. Is it's a marathon long documentary that's pretty much an epic, almost like video encyclopedia. Like, we are celebrating and we're reflecting back on these movies, and we're getting the people to actually talk about them who made them. So as we're doing that, we start looking at, okay, what films are we going to cover? Who are we going to talk to? And how are we going to bring this all together? And then once we've done however many months of shooting and editing and everything to actually get the film cut together, we then go through the process of getting it ready for release. And that's where we are now with In Search of Darkness Part 2. We're over the goal line and now able to deliver it to everyone.
Awesome. Crimson Mist here. Misk. I can't talk this morning. I've been up all night watching the Friday the 13th box set.
I bet. Yeah, that's a huge release. Everyone's excited for that.
It's pretty good. He wants to know about In Search of Action.
Yeah, so In Search of Last Action Heroes is out, and that was with director Ollie Harper. And that was a little bit before my time, when I became a part of the creator VC In Search of Family. So that is available to see. I believe it's on Amazon Video right now. But, that was just a great review of some of the best action movies that had ever been made. Again, talking to some of the best people that were able to come together and, discuss films. Although I will say one of my favorite highlights of that one, just as a fan of In Search of Last Action Heroes, is getting to see the coverage of the old film I Come in Peace. That starred Dolph Lundgren. And then, that's just a classic Cinemax favorite for me. So it's blending, awesome sci-fi and action, and it's just a fun one. But I say anyone who wants to check that one out, go for it. It's a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, I got to see that one yet. Stephen Murphy says yes. Stuart Gordon passed this year, and he's in both documentaries. Was he ill when you met him, and how is he to talk to?
Yeah, so I'll mention that our director, David Weiner, did the interview with Stuart, and he was in, great spirits and just incredible to talk with. And yeah, Stuart Gordon is an absolute legend, one of the best ever. I grew up, absolutely as a fan of Reanimator, From Beyond, Castle Freak, Robot Jocks. We've even done a watch party on Robot Jocks, really celebrating Stuart's legacy and his impact. And of course, having Jeffrey Combs on to talk about working with Stuart and reflect on their time making Reanimator was huge. But yeah, absolutely, Stuart Gordon was one of the best.
That's really cool. Let's see here. I thought there were a couple more questions that I might have missed. No, looks like mostly just statements at this point.
Cool.
So
cool.
yeah, so what other kind of things are you hoping to add going down the road that you can talk about today?
Yeah, well, mainly the big ad stuff is, what we brought to the table for In Search of Darkness 2 right now. We've got, again, like I mentioned, over 15 new interviews from members that have joined us, and then 40 returning cast members who are interviewees. And the whole cast list is just, again, some of my favorite people from the entire era. And from here, the next year is going to be continuing doing these watch parties and these events and bringing that access to the horror community. And one of our biggest goals is, just delivering on what we've been doing all year so far. Just like with you and Andre being on with us, we're just going to keep watching great movies and having celebrities in and doing Q&As and having fun. That's the whole thing.
That's awesome. Now, other than possible sequels to the ones you guys have done already, is there other ones you guys have discussed going forward, like maybe even the 90s versions, or opening up to other genres besides action, sci-fi, and horror that you've done so far?
Yeah. We've been listening to the fans. We've been listening to people watching In Search of Darkness and, giving us feedback and saying, oh man, I wish you guys had gone into the 90s. I want to see more from this, part of the world. I want this and this. And that's what we're doing, is we are working our way towards delivering on that kind of stuff. We're totally paying attention to everyone who's like, why stop at Phantasm 2? You should go on to Phantasm 3 and do the same thing with Hellraiser and Return of the Living Dead, and just, keep the conversation going. So that's what the whole plan is. This isn't going to be stopping. We're going to keep it going. So for everyone asking, we are 100% paying attention and listening to you talking about do more and get deeper into stuff and look at other decades. We're we're working it.
James Rowe wants to know, has Tony Todd been mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were just talking about, how incredible he is, and Clive Barker's Candyman, and Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead remake. I mean, Tony Todd, for me, 100% is one of my all-time favorite guys. And even as just a fan, being able to meet him at a convention and talk with him and, discuss what his work was leading up to becoming an icon for us. I mean, we were even just, sitting around having fun talking about Wishmaster the other day, because that's like the collection of everybody. And, that's entirely our goal, is like, we're bringing everybody together to be able to share their stories. And one of the coolest things about In Search of Darkness Part 2 is we have Nick Castle, the original The Shape.
Right.
We've got Doug Bradley, Pinhead. We've got Robert Englund as Freddy. We've got Kane Hodder. And all four of those guys have never been under the same roof before. So that's huge. That's especially, cool. For me growing up with those guys, loving their movies, and now being able to bring that to everybody. But we've had some awesome talks about bringing some great people, and Tony Todd is definitely up there high on the list. He's 100% one of the best.
Awesome. We got a couple of great questions coming in here now. Immortal Remus asks, will your next documentary be about fantasy?
No, the next one is going to be about sci-fi. That's the In Search of Tomorrow.
Right.
But I will say that some of the movies that are discussed in Search of Tomorrow do border on the sci-fi fantasy sort of spectrum. And that's kind of something that we've even done with the watch parties with that project,
right,
is watch stuff like Krull, which is, again, one of my all-time favorites that I absolutely love. So we're going to be integrating fantasy into 80s sci-fi.
Right.
And then from there, we'll see. But
I just to bounce off that, are there any other genres that you guys have talked about that you can talk about that you guys have discussed, like for another In Search of, besides, like I said before, action, sci-fi, or horror yet?
Well, we'll see. I mean, we've talked about, again, everyone who's asking fantasy, anime, action. I mean, Comedy. Yeah, comedy's been brought up. And right now, our total focus is on horror and then sci-fi.
Right.
But from there, we'll see. I mean, It's all about, keeping that conversation going with the fans and everyone who's watching. And as long as we're making them, we're just going to have a good time. But for now, it's all about horror and sci-fi, and we'll see where we go from there.
Awesome. Let's see here. Next question we got is Stephen Murphy again. Was there anyone you tried to bring on that they were unavailable and turned you down, that you wanted in there? And I'm sure there's plenty of these, so a handful, I guess, for now would do. I'm sure.
Well, I don't like discussing the people who have said, okay, well, maybe next time. People who have been unavailable for any particular reason, like that's, from my experience, bringing people on and having that discussion and sending out the feelers and the messages and saying, hey, we would love to have you join us. It's always been a great process of saying, hey, this time around, I won't be available because I'll be doing something or I'll be in a schedule conflict or whatever it is. And everyone's always been great. It's been just an awesome time. We did have an amazing time with someone that I'll mention, Adrian Barbeau, who came on for Escape from New York. And that was incredible, being able to talk to her and talk a little bit about Creepshow and talk about The Fog and, her whole impact on sci-fi and horror from that era. I mean, even just mentioning that she was the voice of the chess computer in The Thing was such a cool deal. And then talking about her legacy since then, doing more horror movies like The Convent and even showing up in Mad Max games. And to have her involved was, huge. And then we had to go through the process of her going to New Zealand for a shoot and dealing with the current issues of the pandemic and quarantine and things like that. And sometimes schedules don't always line up, but everyone that we've had great conversations with has been awesome. I mean, that's been something that I love doing, is just being able to reach out to my heroes and say, hey, do you want to join us? And starting that dialogue. That's been awesome.
Yeah, here's a good follow-up to that.
Yeah.
Saul Leibowitz says, who have you gotten that really surprised you that you never thought you'd get in a million years?
Yeah, I'll tell you again, talking about some of the new additions to In Search of Darkness Part 2, the fact that we got Shinya Tsukamoto, like one of the legendary Japanese directors in horror, and his output and his film work has been amazing. But to have him in talking about Tetsuo the Iron Man and everything that led up to that was absolutely one of like my greatest, I guess achievements, goals, however you want to say it. Like, I love the fact that we were able to make that happen. And that was totally an international shoot. We set that up to have him set up in the Ikebukuro neighborhood of Tokyo, and we made it happen. And I never would have thought in a million years that we would have been able to pull that off, and we did, and it was incredible. And again, talking about some of these new amazing interviews, like Robert Englund is in this, Freddie's with us. I can't believe that. And the coolest thing that he said about being a part of In Search of Darkness Part 2, the Welcome to Primetime, the best. I love it. And that was the thing too. My first horror movie was Dream Warriors. So now it's 35 years later, and I've got a film that's coming out with Freddy Krueger himself talking about, this is what I was doing.
Well, not just that. You said, you've got Michael Myers, you've got the most well-known Jason, Freddy, all under the same roof. It's just nuts. And Doug Bradley too, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
And, that's just
Cassandra Peterson, Elvira herself, like someone who was just always one of those great horror figures, and has been one of the coolest people ever throughout all the decades.
Hasn't aged in 30 years either.
Oh, she's the best. She looks just
she's
like
so
awesome.
She hasn't aged at all. She made a deal with the devil, I think.
Well, I grew up around like Knott's Berry Farm when she was doing her Elvira shows for every Halloween and everything.
Exactly,
and like,
yeah.
You know, it's amazing to be able to be a part of this just as a fan and to be able to bring it to everyone too. Like all of the, you know, work and all the production that we're putting into this, to be able to deliver it to everyone who's just as big of a fan of this stuff as we are.
Right.
It's like I could go down the list and it's just crazy to think of like when I was a kid watching Poltergeist 3. And now we've got Nancy Allen talking about working with Tom Skerritt and everyone and, you know, doing the film. Like that's a chunk of so much of what this whole thing is that I just love, you know, that we're able to do for everybody.
That's really cool. So I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're real busy.
No. This is a blast. This is a great time.
Was there any other things that you wanted to talk about as far as the documentary goes that you wanted to let people know who might be interested in joining up today? And
yeah,
like I said, we got the link is in the description. I've also been throwing it in the chat periodically too, guys, if you want to check it out there. But yeah, go ahead and let everybody know what they can expect if they do join in, or what the different levels include.
Totally. Well, the first thing I was going to say was just, you know, thank you and Andre for being a part of the In Search of family. Like the In Search of Tomorrow watch parties that you guys have been on with us have been awesome. It was great being able to have you on with us to talk to Brad Dourif about, you know, Dune, and then a little bit about Chucky, because I know all of us look up to him as one of those great like performers and actors and thespians and figures. I mean, Oscar nominee from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and a whole like filmography of some of the most incredible movies ever made, from David Lynch to John Huston to more. It's
Right.
Toby Hooper and so many others. Is crazy. But yeah, for everyone who wants to get a hold of what we have available right now, it's going through October 31st. And you can, like you said, follow the link in the description that you've got posted, Tom. And the whole bundle consists of basically the best stuff that we can bring you for this release, including the film, 3 awesome posters, one from our head of design, Clayton Benge, one from the artist Ratchet Loft. That's the one with the TV and the 3 masks from Halloween 3. And then the one above that is from Dave Morrell. And putting that poster together and getting everyone's input, you can like focus in on some of the posters that are on the wall behind the figure wearing the Rebels cheerleader sweatshirt from Night of the Comet, which to see Kelly Maroney's reaction to this poster was like one of the best things ever. It was so awesome when she saw that this had been put together, and the entire run of all like the 80s horror villain figures. You know, you've got the Reanimator fluid there. You've got the configuration, the Blob.
Yeah. And then the spear, you got the killer clown hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
really
mean,
cool.
we had a blast putting these posters together, and we just love the fact that, you know, this level of art came together along with the level of what we're doing for the documentary. So, you know, getting the posters, and those will be part of the deal that you can throw up on your wall. You've also got the soundtrack and the score.
Mm-hmm.
And the soundtrack, again, is an awesome compilation from New Retro Wave, totally done for In Search of Darkness Part 2. And then the In Search of Darkness Part 2 score is from Weary Pines, who's returning, who did the original film score music for the first documentary. And then the Access Pass, you know, that's the whole thing is
Right.
you become part of the community and our 80s horror Discord, and we're all in it together. You know, we're all here to celebrate the movies that we love from this era. And then every other Sunday we come together and we sit down and have an awesome Q&A and a watch party and just have a good time. And then there are other events too planned throughout the year, like lectures and appearances and stuff that we're going to be having fun. So, and like Tara Wombat's asking, how do you get part 1? When you go through the page, you have the option to add on part 1. because that is, like you said, tough to get now. So we wanted to make that available for everyone who might not have gotten a chance the first time around.
I think I screwed up and didn't get part 1 when I did my thing, but oh well. Maybe one of the special editions. Are you going to offer it with that as well, or?
Oh yeah, well that's the thing is, if you place an order, I mean, if you get the documentary and then you realize, oh, I wanted to get something else, or I wanted to get something added on to it, we're always, all for helping out.
Cool.
So yeah, we've got a great delivery team, customer service team, fulfillment team, support crew, whatever you're wanting as a fan and someone who wants to get In Search of Darkness Part 2, we're on it. We're all for it for you.
Awesome. So yeah, head on over there, guys, and check it out. Any plans for an alternate history documentary about 2D hand-drawn classic animation and anime, and how it always will be superior to 3D CGA? I know you mentioned animation earlier in the possibilities of movies that you were talking about.
People are asking. Yeah, people are asking about anime. People are asking about classic animation. I'm a fan of animated films. I mean, just like so many others, I grew up on stuff like Don Bluth and Disney, but also growing up, I've gone into deeper cuts like, here's one, Belladonna of Sadness. If you've seen that one, that's an incredible animated feature. But, Akira, Wicked City, 8-Man After area, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like, I could go on about, badass anime, Berserk, that I'm a fan of. But to, look at that as a possibility, again, that's part of the discussion. That's part of what we're hearing. That's part of what we know people are wanting. And we're going to keep things going. And if we're able to go down that path, we'll see. But just as a fan, I mean, I know we're going to be doing an Akira watch party for In Search of Tomorrow. 100%, the fact that that's such an integral part of science fiction cinema. I mean, as an animated feature, as a Japanese anime, it's 100% in the discussion.
Right.
Because, it's iconic. Absolutely. But, when it comes to hand-drawn and different styles and stuff, I love classics. I mean, I really do. So, it's just the kind of stuff I go back to and always enjoy revisiting.
Awesome. Now I got to ask, yeah. I love the whole idea of In Search of series, but with like You're So Cool, Brewster was just I love the deep dives.
Yeah.
Has there been any point where you've thought about, or you or the guys or anybody else have talked about doing just another one like that, where it's just one that's specifically on one subject at all?
Yeah, like one single film or one single creator. That's something that, again, the way that In Search of Darkness Part 2 and In Search of Darkness and In Search of Tomorrow are set up, I mean, these are basically like you're opening an encyclopedia and you're going decade by decade, year by year. But we've kind of integrated that a little bit into In Search of Darkness Part 2 with career retrospectives. And what we've done is we have given dedicated time to a handful of the people that are featured in the new film. Like Linnea Quigley, we have a huge section for her talking about her specific history and her career. And then we've got the same thing for Tom Savini. We've got the same thing for Robert Englund. We've got these parts of the documentary. But as for a whole feature, just about one film or one person or one subject, and again, when you look at the big picture of In Search of Darkness Part 2, it is all about the one subject of 80s horror. But we'll see. We'll see what the plan is down the line. And, the thing is, we also support other documentary filmmakers too. Like another one coming up, we've got Evil Dead that we're going to be doing a watch party for. And we've got the director of the new documentary, Hail to the Deadites, who's going to be coming on. So while we're all watching that and talking about it and doing the Q&A and enjoying the live commentary, we're going to be going full on down that path. So that's, part of the community aspect of it too. We do those deep dives like that together and have fun that way. But we'll see. we'll see what the future is going to be after part 2 and In Search of Tomorrow, and what we've got coming after that. We've got some great stuff on the way, though. Like, without revealing everything, we do have some really, really cool ones planned.
Sounds awesome. And I can't wait to get involved with as much as we can. And hopefully you guys can get involved too by heading on over to the link. I'll throw that in the chat one more time. It's also in the description as well. And I'm going to also work on getting the link in the description for the sci-fi documentary as well. So in case you guys hadn't got a chance to get that yet, you also can get on over there and get that as well. Oh, Toxic Man Flu sends in a $2 super chat. Says, "Hail Tom, great topic, great guest." Oh yes, and hopefully we'll have Andrew back here again in more than just a capacity than just like this too. Hopefully maybe we'll have him on just in a regular guest role on the morning shows. Well, so this though was more so just to kind of focus on in the documentary, since you guys just launched it and stuff like that. But definitely we'll have you back again for sure. I just picked up the Evil Dead 1 and 2 on 4K. Can't wait for the new Army of Darkness one either. Speaking of those,
love them. Yeah. That's the thing, Army of Darkness, that's the word. Everyone's like, oh, you got to get to 90 so you can talk about Army of Darkness too.
Well, that's why I was like, one of the first things I remember saying is get to the 90s so you can talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and a few other ones, It's like, yeah. So, and then, you even got like more horror in the 90s because you had, the Freddy's and Freddy's Dead and Jason Goes to Hell and, all that kind of stuff.
Everything that happened after Scream, all the late 90s William Castle remakes. And, there's a lot to discuss in that decade. But for now, we're having a blast talking about the 80s. And it's the stuff I grew up on. So being able to make this happen is, it's the best.
Patience is a virtue because like we pointed out, it takes years to put one of these together. But definitely, if you guys are a fan of horror, check this out. I can't recommend it highly enough. I haven't even seen it yet, and I know I can recommend it because I've seen the first one and I've seen your other documentary as well, and of course been hanging with you guys doing the watch parties. So if anybody knows more about this stuff than I do, it's you guys. So
well, we don't know everything. That's why we bring in awesome people to be able to tell their stories and talk about stuff. So that's the whole thing.
But yeah, that's one of the great things is getting in on the watch parties, especially like when we talked to Brad Dourif and getting to hear some of the stories he had to talk about.
Yeah. Coming up with his own dialogue and monologue and his nonverbal cues and everything he was thinking about, like his whole idea of the Harkonnen planet. I mean, that stuff you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. You're not going to find that on a trivia page. You're not going to find that in a article, that someone decides to come up with in a top 10 or anything like that. To get that directly from him and hear him talk about what he did to develop the character of Piter de Vries, like that's just one instance of the entire year of watch parties and events that we've had so far, where we've had people come in and be like, yeah, this is what I was doing during this movie. This is what it was like working with Stuart Gordon or George Romero or whomever. And that's huge.
Yeah, we had Ed Chiodo.
Yeah. Pushing the critters ball.
Oh,
there's my legs.
And of course I love critters. And and then my heart was broken. I didn't get to meet Harold Faltermeyer this last weekend.
Yep.
Because I'm a huge fan of Beverly Hills Cop and Fletch and a few of the other ones he's done contracts for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been so mumuch fun, and I can't wait to do more. And I can't wait to hear what you have coming up here, because that's what you guys get in on being part of this. The watch parties are great, and I'm assuming that's also the same way you do all the other stuff too, through Discord and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because, being a part of the community by getting the documentary, you've got access to the entire Discord, all the different channels. You can talk about your favorite movies. You can talk about what you're watching right now. You can talk trivia. You can chat with all the other members of the 80s horror community, and you can share your collections. You can share news about exciting releases. Like, everybody's been talking about the new Friday the 13th box set. Everybody's been sharing their collections. Like this week we had Clive Barker's birthday. We've got, a great community of people who are all here for the same thing, to celebrate this era, to talk about the movies that we love. And everyone has, bought in and become a part of this group that we're all really committed and invested in. I mean, it's like when you've got a great group of people that are all together, it's not like a random open forum or like social media site where there's no filter and anyone can come in and try and troll or any stuff like that. This is like one of the best communities I've ever been a part of, and to be able to schedule events for that and to bring in people to talk about their movies and to see the community grow and have fun, and people learn new things and share new stuff with each other and just enjoy the experience. I mean, that's what it's all about. But yeah, it's an ongoing just schedule that we release the news every single week and tell everyone what's going on, and we just keep having fun.
Awesome. So yeah, let's double check and make sure there wasn't any more quick questions, and then we can probably call it a day, because I think we've covered everything we pretty much can. But again, we do want to have you back again soon to talk about all kinds of other stuff as well. Oh, here's a quick question. Any plans for producing your own motion picture someday in any of the genres you've covered in your documentaries?
Yeah, I mean, if there was an opportunity to, help out and produce and do some work on some other features, I'll say right now, I had done a film that I was honored to be able to help be a part of, called Insect by the director Jan Svankmajer. And, his work is incredible in like surrealist stop motion. A lot of people know him for Alice. He did Faust, he did Lunacy, he did so many others. And that was, a real, again, honor to be a part of that. But I'll say this is pretty cool. There's been news out about it. I'm the executive producer of a feature film coming from director Elias Marriage of Begotten and Shadow of the Vampire and Suspect Zero and Den of Celestial Birds and a handful of others. He has a new film on the way called Polium Blastema, which would have gotten a theatrical release this year and a roadshow presentation and some awesome, Q&As and other really cool events, along with a new theatrical release of Begotten. And that had to be delayed. So being a part of that has been amazingly fulfilling. And, we'll see if he ever wants to come on and discuss how Begotten has been sort of embraced by hardcore horror fans. That's always an interesting discussion to have. And if there are any other further projects down the line, I'm always down to talk with filmmakers and to have that conversation. It's great, but like I said, the whole focus right now is what we're doing, and that's In Search of Darkness Part 2. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. So again, I can't recommend you guys head on over there and check it out enough. I know it's going to be awesome and amazing just from the trailer alone. I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming in this morning and talking about the documentary and everything else. Is there anything else you want to share with everybody before you go?
Well, I was going to say, everyone who's checking out the page, everyone who's looking at getting a copy of In Search of Darkness Part 2, we've got that trailer that you showed, Tom, at the beginning. There's also the community video, which shows how you become a part of the Discord, how that plays out. It gives a couple of clips from the different watch parties that we've done throughout the year. But, we're on social media. We've got the at 80s horror doc and hashtag 80s horror and hashtag In Search of Darkness, all that stuff. We're always around, and we're just excited because October is going to be great. And Alpha
Awesome.
J, thank you so much for saying you can't wait to check it out, because we can't wait to hear what everyone has to say about it.
No, I just got to figure out how to get part 1 again. I screwed up. I thought it was asking me if I wanted another, because I was getting the Blu-ray, so I thought it was asking me if I wanted a DVD as well. I didn't realize it was asking me if I wanted the first one. That's boomer era.
Like I said, we got you covered.
I'll have to check that out. All right. Well, thanks again, Andrew. And I want to thank everybody else for joining us here this morning on this special edition of Midnight's Edge in the Morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.